All right. Welcome everybody for this wonderfully full volunteer Q&A evening. It looks like we have 46 people here this evening, which is so great to see. So what we're planning to do this evening is an overview of the platform and the general positions that we're looking to have volunteer support for. We're going to talk in fairly general terms right now about time because we are still working to put specific dates onto shifts. But what we're going to talk about is kind of three different sets of work. We're going to talk about volunteer work that will be coming up in April, and work that then after that we're just calling pre-open support shifts. And we're leaving that vague because we haven't yet announced our opening date. But that is coming up very soon. And then we're also going to talk about what volunteer shifts would look like post-open as well. And just to give everyone an overview there. And again, because we're recording this, we're hoping that this is just a brief tutorial for folks who might be interested, and it's not going to be exhaustive by any means. So we'll probably do another one of these as we get closer, and we're going to probably do some of these as training videos for some volunteers as we have, and those ones might be like Lauren and I in the space doing things and recording some trainings that way. So we are joined, I think, like we mentioned before. So Lauren Bell is our operations coordinator at the market. And if you did not know that, that's a new thing. And so I'm so happy that he agreed to take on full-time work with the co-op. And he's my sanity these days, so that I'm not the one full-time person here. And he's been doing amazing work with our local vendors and talking with a bunch of local producers and working with the national cooperative folks that are helping us with our store launch. So I really appreciate everything Lauren's doing, as well as all of this good stuff as well. We also are joined by Leah Chapinelli, who's our board chair, and also does volunteer work both in HR capacity and some volunteer corralling capacity. And Patty McKenna, who is our fundraising and campaign coordinator. And we also have a couple of other folks in the room. Debbie Andell is also here from our board, and I feel like I need to scroll to see if we have any other board members present. Donna is here. Hi, Donna. And if I don't see you, oh, Nancy's here too. Good to see you, Nancy. So if I've missed anyone, I apologize, but I think those of us from the board and staff who are present. And hopefully we can help answer kind of any multitude of questions that might come up this evening. So with that said, I'm gonna do, if I have the capability, a quick screen share, Lauren.
Yeah, let me give you that.
And I'm gonna dive right into just sharing what the shifts look like. The tool that we're using, which I think a number of folks might be familiar with, is Sign Up Genius. And I'm gonna share my screen and share some of the shifts that we have coming up. And feel free, after I kind of just do the overview, feel free to start, putting questions in the chat, raising your hand, that kind of thing. We want this to be fairly interactive. And then if there are questions about other fun stuff, like, do you want to know about our active campaign that's going on? Patty's here and can answer questions. Lauren can answer questions. If you'd like to know about the board nominations process, Leah, as our board chair, could help you answer those questions. So you don't have to constrain this just to volunteer stuff, but that's our primary focus to start. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, so we are hopefully all looking at Sign Up Genius. Can you all see that? Great. And Lauren, I've got like half of the screen. Okay, I can kind of see folks. I cannot see the chat though, Lauren. So if there are questions that come up, just give me a shout.
I will, yeah.
All right, so as you can see, we're using the free version of Sign Up Jesus right now. So there are ads. And we'll work on that. We're gonna we just needed to get it launched. So this is the launched version, and then we may pay for it so that we can get ads and stuff to go away. But this is just our landing page. So we're gonna start from the top. And I think we've talked about some of this in the past, but first we're gonna look at some of the stuff that we consider our pre-open. So one of the first things that's going to be coming up, and please don't, these dates don't mean anything. Remember that, please. This is just to position them a little bit. So the things that we have pre-open, we are going to be working on cleaning the basement, which is a mostly finished space at this point, but there's some lovely cobwebs falling from the ceiling and things like that that will need to be cleaned out. We're going to need to do a good like wipe down of all the walls because there is new drywall in the basement, but it will have already been sanded. So we're going to need to do some cleaning and then painting of those walls. We did recently get many gallons of paint that we did a donation to Art Space Maynard that's currently cleaning out their space. We got some big gallons of paint from them, and that's actually going to be most of the paint we need in the basement. So that worked out really well for all orgs involved. And so that's going to be comprised of a couple of different shifts, right? So we're going to need folks who are already with their dust masks and gloves and such to come in and help clean. Then we're going to have a few more shifts that would be doing like base coat painting and secondary coat painting, and we're also going to be looking for some folks who specifically have some experience painting and could be team leads for this stuff. So if you have experience with house painting or anything kind of in that area, then we're happy to see folks volunteer for this. You'll notice that we put like 20 slots for each one. We're mostly doing that right now because we want to see how many people are interested in which type of thing. So feel free, once we share the link and before we leave the meeting tonight, we're going to share the link to this page in the chat and you can take that with you and kind of look through the stuff. We'll keep adding more descriptive information as we go. So if you sign up for a shift, one of the fun things that will happen is you're actually going to get notified if we update that shift, right? So for the moment, it's all pretty general, but if you were to sign up and say, yeah, I want to support painting work, then we might break it out and add more shifts. We'll add descriptions and things like that.
Sam, I just,
Yes.
one question from Jeanette. They get that the dates aren't real, but are you planning for work days on these actual days of the week?
We could be flexible with that. So I think it would be a matter of, it's mostly a matter of my time. So until we receive our occupancy permit, if we are in the space prior to receiving occupancy, I have to be on site because I have my OSHA 30. So we do have to have somebody with their OSHA 30 on site. So because of that, we certainly can do non-weekday times or not early daytime times. We could do evenings and weekends, but we'll want to be kind of thoughtful about how we schedule that, since I will have to be present. But again, that's why we're looking for team leads. So I could be present at a table working on my computer somewhere in a corner, and technically be there if there are any safety concerns or issues. But that would be why we're asking for some folks to potentially be team leads. So if you're to go through, and we'll go through what the sign up process looks like for folks after we kind of go through these shifts. And that way, if you have any questions about where you can put information, I believe there's an area where you could give us a little bit more info if you wanted to be a team lead. Alternately, Lauren, if you just want to drop the info in the chat, and folks could always email us with like, I'd like to be a team lead, or I can do something in that range.
Yeah, and I'll put that, if you'd like to be a team lead, and I'll get the info at Assabet Market co-op email in there. And then Charlie had asked, likewise, happy to volunteer, but I have a day job. Do you have guidelines on how to signal availability and not available? So
I think so we'll kind of explore that all together when we do
Sure.
a test of the sign up. But I think it's really going to depend on when we place those shifts. So again, right now we're doing these as like, please ignore the time and the date associated with the shift.
Yep.
And then what we're going to do based on feedback that you all give us as far as your availability, what things you're interested in participating in, we'll try to have a few different things that would be applicable for some folks that might have like a weekday morning that does actually work. Some folks that might have a weekday evening that works, and some folks that might have like a weekend time, like a midday or something that works for them. So we'll try to do our best, especially because we are asking for your volunteer support, to do this in a way that works for you all. So that's part of why we want to first get a sense of how many people can support which types of work, and then we'll get into the kind of the time and scheduling with you all at that point, because then we'll have your info, and then we can message you right through Sign Up Genius. So other things that are happening kind of in this block of time, I don't know if it's going to let me. Oh, we can't see anything when I do that. Okay, so we're going to do some spring planting. As of right now, the spring planting event, as we're calling it, could be, again, a series of shifts. This could be some folks helping with some additional cleanup by the river, and then doing some preparation work for folks to come in and then do plug and seed and other plantings. And as of right now, that planting schedule is going to be dependent on when our contractors say that we're cleared to be out there doing that work, that there's no additional site work that they're needing to do. But this one it's going to be when it's a bit warmer out, right? We don't want to have any snap freezes that are going to affect planting health and things like that. So we're saying spring, and that could be before or after we open, depending on when that date is. I'm just going to keep being really vague and anticipatory, but it is happening soon. So then moving on downwards, we have some office setup. So this would be after we've done painting and after the air has cleared a bit. And then we do have a temporary office at the other end of the plaza. So if you're familiar with the Victory Plaza, the other end cap, we're at one end, and at the other is the Maynard Village Pizza. And we have a temporary office right next to Maynard Village Pizza. And in that office, we have a lot of things being stored right now. That's basically being used. It's an old hair salon, and we're using that as a storage space, thanks to the Kaufmans for allowing us to do that. And so we will have materials that need to be brought down from that space. We also have materials that folks are donating that will need to be unloaded from cars. And we also have materials that we will be purchasing, such as some desks and things like that, that will need to be set up. So again, this would be a series of shifts, and I think there's a lot more flexibility kind of when this kind of activity could be happening. And that's something that Lauren and I would be able to kind of trade off who's available to be there and just be around for folks to help bring stuff in and all of that good stuff. The last piece in kind of this pre-open is there is going to be some finished carpentry work that we will need support with. So as of right now, that work is probably going to be the installation of materials that have already been manufactured elsewhere. So the conversations we've been having with folks who are who do, like, they build cabinets and things like that, we're getting quotes on our customer service desk at the front. We're getting quotes on our deli counter in the back. And generally speaking, what we're thinking about for finished carpentry would be folks who could help come in and actually help install those pieces. So we're not asking for so much fabricating support as we are installation support on the carpentry side of things. You will note that we do not have as many spots open for that work. We are looking for folks who do this or as a very serious hobby with some certification, or who do this for work with skills and experience. So we would need at least one of two people to be a qualified carpenter. So that's kind of that first set. And are there any questions kind of on any of that work before we move into some of the
Sam,
pre-open?
there are a number of questions that have kind of piled up. So one is, Carol is wondering if we've considered having volunteers keeping plants ready in their yards or growing any annuals to use, maybe even sod, so that if time passes, the grass will have a head start. That's the first question.
Okay, so I'm also opening the chat so that I can see some of these, so that you don't have to just read this off. Okay, great. So, all right. All right. Carol. So I think on the planting front, one of the things we have been seeking out is potential plant donations from certain nurseries and such, and also to think of it from like an installation perspective. We are looking to bring in the plants in pots, and it would make it a lot simpler for us to do that in trays and not kind of in distributed single pieces. So I mean, we'll take it into consideration, but I think we're also being held to a pretty specific standard by the Conservation Commission about the condition the plants get planted in, that we're not bringing in invasives with the plants. And unfortunately, if these are planted in your side yard, your front, your back, the likelihood that they could take on some invasives in the soil around the plant is possible. So I don't want to completely say no, but my inclination is to say that that may not work logistically. All right, so for finished carpentry work, do we need to supply our own tools? No. I would say if you are a carpenter by trade, then you are going to want to bring your own tools. Just having, I do carpentry work, and like I don't like using other people's tools. It's not required though. I have some drill sets and I have a bunch of tools, so I will have my tools on site. And if there's anything more specific and unique required that was like very specialized, then we would make sure that that was made available. Let's see. We had another question about sod. So at the moment, I just to clarify this, we're not actually having sod planted in the back. The ground cover that's being planted is all coming from seed, and it's a specific species that the Conservation Commission approved that's meant for riverside applications, and for the protected area that we're in. All right, is there an estimate for when the occupancy permit will be issued, roughly what needs to be done before that happens? So that's a question that is only to be answered by the building inspector. But the short version that I'd have for the occupancy is, please don't hold me to this, but as long as all of our fire safety inspections, all of our electrical finished inspections, and plumbing are approved, we have to have sanitary in the building. My understanding is we have to have sanitary, the walls, the floors, the lights, all of that stuff has to be done. And if we have large equipment that's still being brought in, but the outlets are finished, right? Like they're not things that have to be hot wired into the building, then my understanding is we can get temporary occupancy, which does allow us to do more activity in the space. So our goal would be to get the temporary occupancy first, and then the final occupancy won't be issued until after our doors are on the front of the building. And the doors are going to be one of the last things, our glass sliding doors are going to be one of the last things that get physically installed in the space. So I hope that that helps to answer that question. Let's see, looking for desks and office supplies. We will happily check out Great Exchange. Lauren, I don't know if you mind just grabbing that link, and
Yep.
we will save that. Thank you so much. Yes, no grass, please. Thank you, Jeanette. Okay, so I think we made it through those questions. If you have any more, feel free to keep adding those to the chat. All right, so I'm going to move us into the pre-open. Okay, so we're going to move into these pre-open spots. So again, this is not exhaustive. We may be adding more types of shifts, but in what we're calling our pre-open shifts, these are when we have all of our equipment, all of our major equipments in the space. So this is after our refrigeration units have all rolled in, plugged in, the condensers are on, after our bases and all of the general shelving has been set up, and just so that folks please don't assume that in all of that like I'm in there doing all this, or Lauren and I are there by ourselves like clanking around. We do have a lot of support from the co-op community on that front. So we both have a refrigeration installer that will manage that. And then we have folks both from the National Co-op Grocers who are coming into town, who are going to be helping with store setup for shelving and things like that. And they're also going to be calling on some folks from regional co-ops to come and help support us with that as well, so that we have people who like just put shelves together for a living come and put the shelves together, because that's the best way to do that particular piece. So kind of after that point is when we're talking about pre-open shifts. So after our refrigeration units have been plugged in, have cooled down, shelves are up, that's when we're going to start getting our deliveries are going to start rolling in, and they're going to be rolling in on a schedule that we're developing with the National Co-op Grocers team. So that is one really significant piece of work. And basically what we're looking for is from again, we have like 20 spots open. So we're looking for folks who would be interested in that kind of support. Those deliveries would tend to be more during daytime hours. So just to put that out there, the pre-open delivery type work, that's going to be usually like probably hopefully no earlier than 7 a.m., but some of them could be earlier, 6 a.m. But they're certainly not going to be like late into the day. So those are more likely, delivery support would be more in a morning capacity. And that is one of the things that we'll start to qualify some of these with like the physical requirements for some of these shifts, so that you all understand what we're asking for. But pre-open delivery support and stocking support would be where we need folks who are able to bend, lift, kneel, and be able to pick up things between 30 and 50 pounds potentially. And so we just want to be really upfront about that, just like we would in a job description. We'll be very clear about that in shift descriptions, because things are coming in on pallets. They come in on 4x4 pallets. They're stacked chest high sometimes, and then they get broken down by case and then by individual item, and they get put on the shelf. So there's a lot of movement and lifting with those, both the delivery support and the shelf stocking. But then we also have what we're calling POS support shifts, two different types of things. POS support is data work. And those would be, we have both printing and scanning, and printing does precede scanning. So that's where we're going to be printing off all of the shelf tags for the entire store, not putting them up. We're going to be printing them off and then literally going through and having to scan everything to see if it rings up in our point of sale system. So that's the first time we do that. We're going to do that again, but we're going to do that as product comes in. We're going to then scan all the product as it comes in and make sure it rings up under the appropriate item in our system. So we have a number of scanning shifts. And that's an area where we could certainly use support, because if you can imagine the one IT POS support person that we hire sitting behind a pile of 6,000 items, scanning every single thing in. So that's something that we're gonna have to do a couple of times before we open. And so that's kind of our pre-open. Again, there could be more things. Like we're probably going to add some shifts around like event support for opening day, and things like that, once we have those dates a little bit more aligned. So please keep an eye out for that. And in general, Lauren is going to start using Sign Up Genius. So we will have a couple of, we can have different modules within Sign Up Genius. So this is the one for a lot of this pre-open support, and we'll develop ones for like future tabling support. We may still have those opportunities available, but Lauren will do that within a separate module, and we'll contact folks who've normally done those shifts, but we'll also make that available for everyone if you want to be out in the community and giving everyone a shout about the co-op. Are there any questions about those, the ones we just talked about? I don't think I see anything new in the chat right now.
Yeah, there's something from Beth around, and this is a good question. I know it's not the first time we're going to be asked. Are there shifts appropriate for student volunteers?
So that is a good question. Depends on your definition of student. If you're talking college student or high school student or middle school or etc. So with all of these shifts, it's a great question, because with all of these shifts, we are actually going to be asking everyone to be signing waivers. So if you're going to be doing a volunteer shift on site in the space, we are going to have volunteer waivers, and we will be having a discussion internally as to whether students 16 and over could volunteer with someone present who is responsible and accountable for them. We have not determined that yet, and I'm saying that only because it's so busy, and we do have to be careful about what we commit ourselves to, because then we're saying that we can follow through on that commitment and instruct and guide young folks, which we're not against, but we want to make sure we have the capacity to do that correctly, and the paperwork to do that correctly, and the shift set up that way. So we don't have an answer as of yet, but as we put finishing details in, I think what we're gonna have to do is just, we'll put an asterisk and say 18 and over or 16 and over, and I think we'll just label the shift that way. So you'll know as we update these, if there are any eligible. Um, did we say that shelf stocking requires heavy lifting or just unloading and receiving? It really can depend, Janice. So thanks for asking that question. Some of the work with stocking, if the material's already on, so they're called polymer carts and they have 2 levels on them. So if there were, cans on the cart and that doesn't require as much, then your capacity for moving and lifting might be more between like 5 and 15 pounds, right? So for some of the stocking materials, it might not be as heavy because that means we may have already broken a case down or put the case on a cart. So then it's rolling the cart out and putting individual items on the shelf. There will still be the need to be able to reach up to put things up above head height and to get to things that are waist and knee height. So I think the bend capacities there and or the accommodation to have someone set up with like a stool station and be able to stock stuff and sit down and stock things at seating height. I think that there's accommodation that we can have in that process. And all of the retail and backstock space are all on one level, just to clarify that for folks. All right. So if there aren't any other questions just about those, I'm going to just move us down into potential open store positions.
Sam, before you
So-
head there, can I
Yeah.
just broach these last 2 questions that were kind of mixed into the chat? One is, are the pre-open tag printing, scanning, et cetera, are those going to be weekday shifts or is that yet to be determined?
That is yet to be determined. We do have to talk with the NCG team because, again, some of this is like we need to partner both our volunteers, you all, with folks who are coming in from other co-ops to support this work, as well as some vendors who are going to come in and be volunteering their time to help set us up. So we're going to see first who's interested. We're going to then try to partner that and pair that with a schedule that's being developed with NCG. So we'll have a better answer on that, I believe, by the end of next week is when we're going to have a more developed schedule about our support from other outside orgs. So I do not have an answer right now on that one. All right. Any others that I missed there, Lauren?
Just Beth was clarifying any potential for under 16 with parents. I understand if it doesn't work, but I remember you had said that we don't have an answer for that yet, but the potential is there, and we'll be clear about it once folks are able to sign up, whether it's appropriate for 18 and over, 16 or over with a parent or whatnot.
Yeah, we'll have a discussion, and honest, I'll be very upfront. Part of that discussion is with our insurance agent, and they're going to be pretty clear with us what they consider acceptable liability. And because even with liability waivers that volunteers are going to sign, that it doesn't mean that there's not some level of liability that still exists to the co-op. With that said, we want to try to have this as community participatory as possible. So if the shifts we don't currently have posted, if we can't accommodate within that, and there's a real desire to have something that youth can participate in, then I think that's something that I'm going to look at Leah and Debbie and folks on our board to see if we could collaborate and think about something that would allow for that, even if we have an event that allows for youth participation. So we'll see what we could do around that. And again, I think I'm approaching it from just a liability standpoint. So we'll see what we can do around that. Yeah. All right. And I think some of those, Lauren, so if they're coming to you directly, that's why I'm not seeing them in the chat. So
oh yeah, didn't realize that came to me. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, not a problem. All right. So I've got one more to chat about, and then we could just open it up. And if you want to unmute yourself and ask questions outside of the chat and all of that, we'll open this up. So potential open store positions, those I just want to kind of think about, and the reason why we framed this as all pre-open and then potential post-open, kind of why we're phrasing it that way. So with federal and Massachusetts state law, one of the things for after the store is open is when we offer volunteer shifts, we're doing those as complements to what staff can already be capable of doing. And that's because we cannot eliminate staff positions through volunteering, at least not the way we're currently structured as a consumer co-op. So we want to be able to offer volunteer shifts after we open, but we want to offer shifts that would be like, we already have staff for receiving, but it would be great to have a hand. And then we can have folks help with receiving. We already have staff who are on shift and scheduled for stocking, and you can partner with them to help stock. There's some stuff that's not on this list, but some of those things. So we're talking about receiving, stocking. There could be things like cleaning bulk bins and filling bulk bins. There could be prepackaged bulk. As we progress and we start doing some cheese cutting in house, there could be cutting cheese, wrapping cheese, prepping cheese, that kind of thing. So there's the potential for those shifts, and I have managed those programs in the past, and I think they're great. It's a really great way for everybody to be involved. But it's kind of that care point that I just wanted to be really upfront about, is that it needs to be in complement to staff, not replacing staff. But so there's some internal, we do want to make sure that we have some shifts that are just from an accessibility standpoint, that we have some shifts that folks can do that aren't like heavier lifting, the need to bend, twist, kneel. So we would want to have some customer service support desk shifts as well. That would be the kind of thing to have folks available to answer questions about: how do I become a member? How do I sign up? My member card isn't working. Can you help find the staff person who could get me, so we're going to have those that we're looking into as well. And then things like you can help to bag, retrieve carts, store opening prep shifts, and cleaning shifts. So those store opening and closing shifts are also great, at least in my experience in the past, for folks who are like, I have an hour in the morning. I would love to come out and do something before my workday starts. It would be great to participate, but I need to do it before 8 a.m. Well, we might have an opening shift, and that would be an opportunity to do that. Or vice versa, I work earlier, I'd like to come by in the evening, and I could help to clean and sanitize and do things like that. So that's the general picture of what that could look like. And we're still fine tuning the details and making sure that we have all of that laid out properly. But I'm really looking forward to that. I think it's a great way that we can all get to know each other better once the store is there and open, and get to see you all in the space and working together. So that is the gist of it for right now. So if we wanted to open things up, if you want to raise your hand or unmute yourself, I'm going to stop sharing my screen just for the moment.
There are a couple in the chat that you can probably see, Sam, right? From Linda.
Let's see.
Well, Linda, yeah.
Are there limits on what volunteers can do, such as using ladders or power tools? Yeah, I'd say from like a safety standpoint, we are going to probably restrict what some of those volunteer shifts look like, and staff would be responsible for certain trained things, or we call them like skilled or safety related things. We would still have anyone who's interested in an open store volunteer position. We would still have to have folks go through like a modified version of a safety training and a health and safety training and a food safety training. And so those things would need to be happening. So normally volunteers could be using step ladders, but not normally full ladders. So if it was like facilities maintenance, we would need to have that normally be a staff job or an outside support job. And then wrapping cheese takes, yes. Let's see, talk about what kind of jobs we'll be hiring for. Yes, so we will be hiring for all of our departments. So while we are looking to support, and I think we've talked about this if you came to a store tour or anything like that, our prepared foods department, we will have people working in the kitchen. So we will have food preparation happening in our space. We do have a full service kitchen being installed. We are looking to have that food complemented by some, we call it like if you work in food, there's like par food that comes in. So that might mean it's been partially prepared. It might come in cold or frozen, and then we're gonna cool it down, warm it up or cool it down, whichever way it comes in, and then finish the cooking process in our space. That might be some of it. We also are looking at some offerings that would come in just ready to sell. And so we'll have a variety, but we are looking to hire folks in the kitchen to work preparing food in our space. And we're going to have positions for our grocery department, our produce department, our front end. But what we are looking to do is to actually cross train everybody between those departments. So if you're a frontline worker, we are looking to say if we hire somebody into the front end and the primary work is working at the register and doing customer service work, we also would be cross training that person in our produce department and our grocery department, so that if on any given day we had someone call out and we needed support in another department, we can make that shift or that pivot. So that's just a brief overview, but we will actually have most of our, if you were to look on our website, and we'll have it all over social media when it happens, but we will have, I believe, all of our staff positions should be posted by next week. So keep an eye out for that, and certainly let us know if you have any questions once you see those go up. Let's see, do you anticipate volunteers can earn discounts? This is a fun one. So additional discounts for volunteering can be considered compensation. And so the state does regulate that fairly carefully. So I cannot promise anything. We will be navigating this conversation with support from the larger co-op community, specifically other co-ops that are open in Massachusetts, because this is not just federal, it comes down to the state level. And as we all know, in Massachusetts, that could mean very different things than if you were in Vermont or if you're in New York or if you're somewhere else. So we would love to do that, and we have to see what that looks like. And we'll figure out, we'll have that sorted out for the open store specifically. So this does give us until the store is open to have that sorted out as far as discounts go. Thanks for asking that question though. Anyone else have a question, or you want to chat or unmute yourself or anything like that?
Yeah, and you all can you can obviously ask questions about volunteering, but you can also ask questions about the project, where it stands, that kind of thing. There's exciting progress being made down there at the store. And then also, if you have questions about the owner loan campaign that launched last Saturday, where we stand with that, and any details about the loan program, we can certainly answer some of that. For the nitty-gritty details of the loan program, I'll put the email in the chat, but you've probably seen it before anyway. You just have to email campaign@assabetmarket.coop. That's just an official thing that we would then email you the digital copy of the prospectus, which goes into all the details of our pro forma and our financials and all that. That's what we ask folks to rely on for a decision around actually making one of those interest-paying loans. But we're making great progress, and feel free to ask questions about that as well.
Yeah, it's all game.
And just remember, you're muted. So if you're speaking and no one's responding, you just got to unmute yourself in the bottom left where the microphone is.
While we're hanging out, I'm gonna show photos of the paint that's going on the ceiling.
Oh yeah.
This is what you get for attending a volunteer Q&A. You get sneak peeks. So let's see here. All right, is that showing up, Lauren?
Oh yeah. Oh, that's so nice.
So this is looking towards the back of the store, standing in the front. This is the paint on the ceilings. And if you were in there for the last store tour, this looks very different from the last time you saw it. So all the walls are in, all the soffits are up, all of our mechanicals in, all of our electricals in, the finishes. So I've talked about that. And if you're not familiar with the term, that means that not all of our light fixtures are actually up, but all the piping and the wiring going to them is there. So we're really only looking at the ceiling. Oh, we're looking at our job ad. There we go. The other direction. So this is looking at the other side of the room. And so you can kind of see where the old ceiling is over there, what that looks like, and how it's getting painted over. The space is just being turned into basically a nice canvas for us to put some fun artwork and colorful stuff up on. And this is now facing towards the front door and the vestibule. And all of the ducts and everything are getting painted. So that's up on the other side. So that's just a little sneak preview of the paint in the space. Let's see if we have questions.
Sam,
Um,
for some reason I haven't seen those pictures, so it looks awesome. For some reason, I cannot post to everyone. It's keeping me in
oh,
a direct message with someone who's left. There's a little glitch there, but would you mind just posting? There's a couple things. Would you mind posting
absolutely.
in the chat for folks who want the prospectus? They can email the campaign at, and then
Mhm.
Carol had asked where are the staff jobs being published, and that's on our careers page.
Yeah, and I can drop that into the chat right now. And so right now we have 3 management positions and 1 administrative role posted on our careers page. And we will be, again, like I said, you'll see it blasted all over our email listserv and on social media when we have all of the jobs posted. And we're very excited to announce, if you did not see it, there's a save the date. We're going to be having a job fair March 28th and 29th. Not the only times that we'll have to talk with staff or potential staff, but we are putting a concerted effort into trying to schedule interviews on the ground those days. So we're looking at 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. on March 28th, that's a Tuesday, and 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Wednesday the 29th. And then we'll, of course, have accommodation for folks who do not have weekday availability. We'll make sure that we make time for interviews both evenings and weekends so that we can accommodate folks who have other jobs that do not allow them to interview during business hours.
Janice, to answer your question around do members get discounts? No, there is no across the board discount for member owners in the co-op. Owners do get a number of benefits. One of those benefits is bulk ordering discounts. So you do get to order items in bulk at or near cost, which is fantastic, and definitely want to take advantage of that. And then owners, of course, get a vote in the board. They can run for the board. They get discounts on classes that we hold at the co-op. They get in profitable years, you can get an annual dividend back at the end of the year. That's basically a patronage rebate based on how much you shopped at the co-op. So that's a profit sharing essentially. And you get a say in what farms, products, and programs we offer. And we will have member appreciation days. It's yet to be determined how often that happens. Some co-ops do it once a year, some co-ops do it quarterly. So that's of course one of the cool owner benefits as well. And you get our store, a store that you own, that you can be proud to own, that we control, that we have a say in, and really be proud of that. So that's kind of a longer answer to that. Sound dampening along the ceiling, Sam, is that something that?
Okay, so I'm going to go through the ones I have, and then I think there's ones that you're saying that I can't.
Oh, sure.
See. So,
okay.
I just dropped in. There's a question about Sign Up Genius. So I actually just put the link in to the page that we were all just looking at. So if you don't have a Sign Up Genius account, that's totally fine. You can just go on that link. You could sign up for a shift. And again, you're not dedicating yourself. This is just giving us a sense of who's interested in what type of work. And then we will be in touch with everybody who's signed up. And we also have a lot of folks who, when you became an owner, you checked a box that said, I would like to volunteer. So what we're also going to be doing is so you may get this twice if you are on that list already, but we are going to also message, I think we have 420 people, right, Leah, that had checked that box, and we'll be blasting this out to that whole list as well. So that if there were folks who couldn't attend this evening, that they'll get that information also. And then I see a general question here about the site. Is parking going to be expanded or improved in some way? It's a bit of a busy, crowded lot at times, and I often worry about what it'll be like when the co-op opens. Is that within our power, or does it reside with the property lot owner? So it's technically it lies with the property owner, but in our lease process, we did negotiate that we will have spaces dedicated to the co-op adjacent to our space. So not all of the spaces on that strip, but we will have some adjacent to our space A lot of those spaces right now, so I think keep in mind that when jam time is busy, we also have a lot of construction workers that are parked, their trucks are on the portion that is closest to the co-op right now. So I think that it's pushing some traffic down. I'm there most days myself. I park at the other end of the lot, but that it definitely is part of it. And jam time opens at 9 a.m. and they tend to have a lot of activity between 9 and 12 and sometimes in the afternoons. Um, but one of the things that's making it even more chaotic that will be addressed is that there isn't what we call striping all over the parking lot right now. So the whole parking lot is getting finished and striped before we open. And that is not gonna fix the whole thing, but it will at least give you lines to park in, which right now is it's a wild west of parking situation. Um, and then beyond the spots that we have directly in front of us, then it is finding spaces in the other end of the lot. But like we've said, we're going to try to accommodate as much as we can with supporting people with carts and bringing stuff out to cars and things like that. So um, it the lot technically has enough space. Now, all of that said, when we open our doors, I expect that we're going to be bursting at the seams and filling every parking spot, and that we're going to need support from the town to figure out additional accommodations, especially for opening day, because I'm hoping that we, have so many people that we need support from the town to accommodate traffic patterns and things like that. And so we're preparing to address those things. Um, but we're working within the parameters that we have. So I hope that that helps answer that a little bit. Was there something in your list, Lauren, that I did not see?
There were a couple things back up a ways. One was about, are we going to have sound dampening along the ceiling?
The answer
And
to that is no,
okay,
because we actually have it. So I do love the fact that as the paint's going up, it makes the space look so big, but it's not actually that tall. So to the top of the ceiling, in the majority of the space, it's actually only hitting around 12 feet. So if we were to install sound dampening materials, that would really push the height of the ceiling down significantly, and that it was going to make it feel really crowded. But additionally, when we put in our refrigeration, our shelves, and the product on the shelves, that acts as a sound dampener a bit itself. So we don't plan on putting panels up on the ceiling.
one of the other questions that was back in the chat a bit, can the market open without reaching the $400,000 goal? What is the mitigation plan?
We have mitigation plans we are working on. So we are talking with one of our current lenders about extending additional lending from outside debt. We are also talking with a number of outside organizations about additional funding options. The 400,000, we are, and Patty, maybe if you are, I can't see the screen as well.
Patty had to jump. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I can't channel Patty. I never have her level of energy. But if I was channeling Patty right now, maybe Debbie could do this. But Patty would say, "No, we're doing an amazing job. We actually um, we're over $100,000 both pledged and received in the $400,000 campaign, and that's in very beginning of our calling and work on the campaign. And we have until the end of April to hit that $400,000 mark. So we are confident that we're going to reach that goal with our owners, but we are also pursuing, we are not waiting for that, just to be very clear. And that might be the better thing to go with, is that we're not waiting on that, and we're actively pursuing additional funds being available. Whether or not we need to use them, we're going to make sure they're available. So if that is helpful, we're not just depending on the 400,000. Yeah.
Yes, and it may be helpful to also know that we launched this campaign in large part in response to a number of our owners, both who had invested previously in the prior campaigns, as well as new owners who didn't get a chance to invest in that campaign, who wanted to invest with a loan rather than make a donation. So our first campaign was really successful, and of course our donation campaign was also really successful, even though we didn't hit haven't hit our goal yet. But in terms of co-ops across the country raising donation money, it's been hugely successful. But in any case, yeah, we do have time. We have a lot of new owners who have not had a chance to an opportunity to make that investment in our store with an interest-paying loan. And the response so far to all of the, and we really just launched publicly officially on last Saturday, and we've had a great response in terms of people requesting prospectuses or prospectuses.
Perspective.
Yeah, and we're not, and like Sam says, we're, you know, this isn't like we're hanging our hat on this campaign alone. The board and Sam have been working really diligently to pursue all avenues, including traditional debt, and we're going to get there.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll share on that is we've also been having conversations. So we have this conversation internally with the board and staff and the strategic planning committee, the very active folks who've been supporting this kind of thought and thinking work. We have a couple of those folks on the call tonight. We've been doing the thinking in that space, but we've also been doing this thinking with the larger co-op organizations that we're partnered with. So we've been having this with the national orgs. We've been talking with them about what levels of support exist within their networks. And so one of the things that's come up, Lauren just drafted an article that one of those organizations, they'll remain nameless until the article is published, but one organization that is going to be publishing an article about Assabet that will get circulated to the open co-op circle in the US, and with a fiscal sponsor that is registered nationally. And that allows us to do a call out to the nation and the support network that exists within food co-ops across the country to say, hey, we weren't able to do this before, but now this sponsor is registered in all 50 states and could actually take in donations for our co-op, because look at how our community has stepped up, right? That's really what we're talking about, is how you all have stepped up so significantly. You're doing it again with this phase 3 campaign. And so we're saying, all right, our community is really stepping up. They've stepped up in every single way that we've asked. We still are getting new owners. We're getting owners who are joining, who are saying, like, I want to become an owner. I want to participate. I want to invest. I want to volunteer. You know, this has been so wonderful to see. And so we're saying, all right, so our community is stepping up. How are you, larger co-op community? Can you support as well? So there is a call out that's going to be happening there. We will circulate that to our community here, and because that's going to be a national thing, you could share that with folks you know in your networks all over the country. So that's something that is going to be happening shortly as well. So we're trying in every way possible to be as creative as possible in funding and being well funded when our doors open. So let's see, are there a couple more? Does anyone know if there's a bike route or path in South Acton getting close to the co-op? Are bike racks included in the planning? So to start, bike racks are included in the planning. We are planning on having at least a simple bike rack set up out front of the co-op. And if you haven't been to the location, there's an area in front of the co-op that currently there's a dumpster residing on it, but that area is going to be, we'll have a bike rack, we'll have some seating, some plants. So that area is going to be opening up, and I could not answer. I don't think there's a bike route that goes directly to the co-op. You do have to get onto the road to get to the co-op from either the bike path in Maynard or the one coming from Concord, West Acton. But they get close, but the path does not go directly to the co-op right now.
Yeah, if you're coming down the rail trail from South Acton, you'd have to come to Summer Street, Waltham Street, and then come down and go around to Route 62 and take that out. You know, and folks probably have heard that there's a big Powder Mill Road corridor project that's very early in the planning to make that whole Powder Mill Road swath of Maynard and Acton much more bike and pedestrian friendly. And I think one of the first things they would be doing is putting in official bike lanes and improving the sidewalks and all that. But again, they're in the early stages of that. But yeah, and then if you're coming from Concord, you can, you're coming from the rail trail that goes right into West Concord, you would then take a left onto Powder Mill and go up that way. But unfortunately, there's no rail trail that leads specifically there. We have had a number of owners who said, are you going to put in a dock because I'd like to kayak there. So
Let's
down the road a
talk about
piece.
that. That's like co-op 2.0. That's
Yeah,
along
that's
with
right.
our solar panels
Yeah.
and elevators and things like that. So that's why we get the doors open. We do amazingly well, and that's when we can think about some of the 2.0 stuff. So there's a question about dividend. So one of the simplest answers on the dividend front is that we don't have an answer on exactly what the dividend structure is right now, because the true part of it is in profitable years. And so the board of directors will be making a determination as we are budgeting, into our profitable years, which is not going to be the first or second year of operation. We will be planning that, and it is the board's responsibility to determine the exact structure of how those dividends are paid out. And that is exactly those options that you laid out. Is kind of determining whether that's like a flat profit sharing, that's a budgeted line item and it's just distributed, or if that is based on how much you shop. So I won't answer that question right now, because the board would be the one to actually work through that one. And I would of course be part of the conversation as well as the staff, but and usually that's something that comes up at a future owner meeting. So there's going to be a lot of other opportunities to talk about that. Let's see, how many members do we have right now? We have 20. We have 21.
Is
that right?
Yeah.
21. Debbie is raising.
I think we're up. Oh, here we go. 21, 22. And actually, I think
there we go.
I think we may have one or two more than that.
Someone may have just joined online, so it's over 2,120 people are owners in our co-op, and it is an amazing amount of support and contribution and dedication that you all are showing. Prior to our doors being open, we broke every single goal that we've ever had for owner growth, equity growth for the co-op, and it's really wonderful to see, because then I expect you all to shop there so much after we open. And it doesn't mean you do your, it doesn't even have to be your entire shop. I just want to see your faces after the doors are open. I want to see everybody in the store, even just coming to get a cup of coffee. Yeah, we're really looking forward to seeing you all in the store. I think we are over time, so I'm going to call it. It's been so wonderful to see you all, to answer questions, to talk about the volunteer opportunities that we have. And we put the link in the chat. We are also going to be marketing a Sign Up Genius link to just our owners list to start. And so if for any reason you missed it in the chat, I will put it in there one more time right now. So the link for Sign Up Genius is there. And we are going to be updating those shifts. We're going to be giving physical descriptions of the work. How hard is the work? What physical requirements are there? We're going to be getting much more specific with dates and times. But again, we'd love to get your interest so that we know kind of what we're navigating in a support sense. So feel free to sign up for a shift. We won't hold you to it, because we still have to put the times out there. And we'd love to see what kind of stuff you're interested in doing. And can't wait to see you all in the space doing work together and getting the store ready for opening. So thank you all for being here tonight. And feel free to say hi on your way out if you want to unmute yourself, but we'll